Good morning. Happy Thursday. It's Thursday already. And we're continuing with our process of how to handle a large decision. So we did the first part, OOC, outcomes, options, and consequences. So now we're doing EMR, evaluate, mitigate, and resolve. So the first thing that you do is, now that you've taken a look at all of your outcomes and all of your consequences, you've put them in order. Remember, the outcomes are in order on paper. That's a big deal. And then the consequences go from up to a plus 10 down to a minus 10. And, they can be anywhere in between, but that's where you're looking. Now you evaluate all of that. And what you're going to find is it's going to clarify for you what's really important. So when I did mine, when I was just thinking about it, when I was just in my dilemma mode, I was confused about, well, really, what was most important to me? Was it, I know that giving the plaque to my dad was very important, but I didn't realize that it was way more important than playing in the tournament. When I actually sat down and thought about it and evaluated it, playing in the tournament was about a plus 5 for me, where the plaque was a plus 10. Also, I thought that doing the emceeing was the same level as giving the plaque, but it wasn't. The plaque is really what was important. The emceeing for me was like a plus 2. I didn't care if I did that. What I cared about was giving the plaque. And I was actually talking to my wife about this while I was doing it. And she was the one that pointed out, well, is it really emceeing or is it just the plaque that's the most important? And when I realized that, I was like, okay, so the plaque is what's most significant. So as you're evaluating, you got to really kind of dissect this. And then I also saw that going to the concert was a plus 10. I knew that one from the get-go. So after I got done looking at everything, I realized I really only had 2 plus 10s, plaque, concert. The rest of it was way below that. And the consequences also revolved around those two things. When I looked at the significant consequences, missing everything else didn't really matter as much as missing the concert or the opportunity to present the plaque. So as I looked at consequences and as I looked at everything evaluating, I got a great deal of clarity about what was important. So now, mitigate. Here's where you got to get creative. So now the question became, okay, is there any way to do the plaque sometime other than at the dinner? Could that be a possibility? And then I got a phone call from the person who runs the golf outing. And he called me up. And normally when we do this golf outing, it has 2 shotguns. It has a shotgun start in the morning at 7:30 and a shotgun start in the afternoon at 1:15. And normally the golf pro, addresses the crowd and talks to them about everything that's going on. Do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. So the guy running the tournament, I called him up and was just kind of talking to him about all of this. And thinking, is there some way that I could present this plaque at a different time? And he said, the person who is supposed to address the golfers in the morning and in the afternoon doesn't want to do it because he's not a public speaker. He goes, I don't know if it would bother you or not, but what about if you gave him the plaque twice? So it was really his thought. And the only reason I came up with that idea, which really he came up with that idea, was because I called him and talked to him about it. I was looking for ways outside of what I was thinking of to present this plaque. And so the guy that actually owns the golf course, or one of the co-owners, he's the one that came up with the idea of, we need somebody to talk to these golfers in the morning and the afternoon. You don't mind public speaking. You know the stuff. You know the drill. Why don't you present the plaque twice? Would that be okay? So that's what I did. So that allowed me, so now now as you looked at mitigation, then I decided. So that allowed me to present the plaque, play with my brother and my dad in the morning, and then still leave in time to attend the concert. So I got to do all three things. The plaque got to be presented twice, even better. And there was still the time in the evening. I had to find somebody else to do the emceeing, which I got a hold of my brother. My brother did the emceeing. So he got to mention my dad too. So my dad got mentioned by both of his sons. Even better. So I ended up being able to do everything that I wanted to do in a way other than what I would have never thought of that. So other than a way that I would have ever thought of, in a way that I think ended up actually better, and I was still able to do all of the outcomes that I wanted, only because I went through this process. And the biggest thing when you mitigate is you got to be willing to be creative, and you got to be willing to try to think of ideas other than what you can think of. That happened because I was talking to my wife about options. She encouraged me to continue to think about other ways to do this. And I called up the owner out at the club, and the owner said, hey, what about this? And he's the one that came up with that idea, and it was a great idea. Worked out fantastically. So this process, it's not easy. It takes a little bit of a period of time. But if you've got a big decision, it's a glorious way to go through that decision. And for me, the initial sitting down and doing the process probably took about a half hour. And then the rest of it took about a day because I talked to my wife for a while, and then she came up with the idea to talk to the golf pro. Took a little bit to do that. He's the one that came up with that idea. Then I got my brother to do the emceeing, and then I talked to the person that initially asked me to do the emceeing to see if they were okay with this outcome. So that whole process probably took a day, maybe took 2 days. But at the end, I got to do everything that I wanted to do, and I still fulfilled my obligations to everybody else. Everything turned out great, and I was able to make everybody else happy and make myself happy. It's a great process. If you've got a huge decision, if you've got something big that you're trying to figure out, this is the process to sit down and do. And the biggest thing is putting your outcomes in order, evaluating them appropriately, and then being willing to really look, I hate this term, outside the box in terms of mitigation. What are the other things that you can do, the other ways that you can come up with in order to figure out how to accomplish your major outcomes? But putting your outcomes in order and evaluating shows you what's really important to you. That's, I think, the most valuable part of this, because then you can focus. Remember, the more specific our outcomes, the more likely we're going to find them, the more likely we're going to go get them. When you're setting a goal, you want to be super specific about the goal and about the deadline. So the same is true with this. Figuring out what's really important, that whole outcome in order and evaluation process is going to allow you to then focus when you mitigate and be like, okay, where can I really hone in here and really figure out what it is that I want to do and figure out a way to do that, and then be creative. Come up with ideas, because there's solutions that you're not going to think of. Talk to other people, try to get other ideas from other people, and it's a great process. It's going to really help. Thanks for watching, everybody. Tammy, thank you very much for your comments this morning. Great to see everyone. Have a great day. We're all in this together. Let's take care of each other.